Today I want to continue my series of videos on getting things lined up, and I want to look at lining up hot foiling to create a border of small images so that they actually are in a straight line. So things we're going to need is a ruler. Now this is a cheap ruler from the supermarket, so that's just a normal ruler. What I normally use is one of these nice craft rulers. They don't cost a lot, but because it's got lines going across as well as the measurements, it really helps with getting corners square, so that things don't go at strange angles. But if you haven't got one of these, there's different ways you can do it. So what I've got here is a piece of copy paper. I actually printed something on the other side that came out not quite the right colour. So it's scrap paper I'm just using to put some guide marks on. I've got a sheet of A5 card. It's an A4 sheet cut in half on my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to use that to make sure the reference line I'm going to put on this piece of paper is actually square with the edges of paper. So I'm just going to line up the paper and the piece of card like this, lay them down, put the ruler on up against the piece of card and draw a line with my pencil. So there, I've got a line going across that piece of paper that I know is lined up correctly with the top and bottom edges. So I'm going to use that as a reference, and then I also want a reference going across my piece of paper. So I'm going to line up. Normally you do this facing you. It's much easier if you do it facing you rather than the camera, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm lining up those edges and coming down. Actually, I've done that too close to the edge. I'll do it at the bottom. Doesn't matter if it's top or bottom. Put my ruler up against my piece of card. And draw a line. Alright, and I'm going to move this down a bit. Do it at the top. So make sure that isn't, I can see that isn't quite straight. So just straighten that out. Put my ruler up against my card. I'm not drawing against the card because there's a chance it'll wiggle and buckle. So there we are. So I've got some reference lines there. Okay. So that's that. If you haven't got a ruler, then you could take a piece of card. I had one here I prepared earlier, but I've buried. You could put a piece of A5 card on a scoreboard or your paper trimmer if it's got a scoring blade, score down it, fold it in half, and that will create quite a strong edge. So you could use that. So that's my scrap paper. I've got a selection of dies here, that things you might want to create a border with. I've also got some hot foil stamps, so you can do it with that. So I'm going to try a variety of things, and I'm going to try it on a variety of different papers and cards. I'm going to split this video into several sections, so I'll actually stop recording kind of at the end of each bit and make that a separate file to upload. So when you want to go back to bits, you'll be able to pick out the particular bit you needed more easily. It'll make it more manageable for me for uploading rather than ending up with a 2-hour video. So I'm going to, first of all, create a border on here. So I thought I would try doing a repeated pattern using just a little die here. Okay, so I'm going to line my piece of card up with my reference markings. Or actually, I want another reference mark as well. I want one further in. Or in fact, I'm going to put my ruler on and I'm going to draw a line where I want it. Now I'm going to need to put another reference line on. So before I go any further, get my piece of card. Now I'm going to line it up using the top and bottom, okay, because I want a reference line that I can use to get my foiling on the right place on my piece of card. So you might need to experiment with having a number of lines. Take that over a bit further. It's because I won't want my foiling right against the edge of my card. So there's a reference line. If I was using this ruler with its extra markings on it, then I can line up one of its lines with the line I've already got, and I can draw in another one. I don't know if I hold that up, if you'll be able to see what I've done. So if you can get one of these rulers, that's great. It makes lining things up much easier. You see, I'm lining the line on my paper up with the extra lines drawn on the ruler so that I can measure across. I'm going to put one there. So when you've drawn up your piece of paper, you might want to keep it. Okay. Another possibility, if you've got one, excuse me a second, if you've got a cutting mat with lines on it, you could use that for doing your lining up. And the other thing I'm going to use, because it helps, is I'm going to put a magnetic sheet underneath, because that will help to hold things still when I'm trying to stick them in place. So the other thing I need is my low tack decorator's masking tape. I use Frog brand. You could use washi tape. It needs to be something that isn't too badly affected by the heat from the GoPress. So I've not tried washi tape, but you could. I think it's a matter of getting different tapes and experimenting with them if you can't actually find one that's been recommended like this. So there's my card. Here's my piece of card I want to foil onto. I'm going to line it up with my line there, and at the top my other line, and then I'm going to put the edge of my ruler. Let me use this one. The edge of my ruler here, and again you could be using a piece of folded card on there. Okay, that's got that in place now. So that's going to be my guide. I haven't cut my foil yet though, so let's cut some foil. I'll do this in red or silver. I'll do it in silver. Scissors. Now I'm going to cut quite a long length of foil, and then from that length I'm going to cut a strip to do my foiling. And I'm going to use this little die here, so I don't need it very wide. Okay, put that to one side. So it's important that this isn't too big so that I can see the ends of my line sticking out. So I'm going to move that across so that it's lined up kind of between my two reference lines. Now if I pick this up and try to show you, it's all going to move, but let's have a go. Perhaps I'll put some tape down. Now, a piece of tape at the top there. So, there we are. So here you can see, it's not quite lined up now, but So I want my piece of card up against one of my reference lines, and then my foil kind of halfway between the next line and the edge of the card. I don't want to leave that stuck down because it's going to give me a problem in a minute if I do. So making sure nothing has now moved. Yes, it has. Move my piece of card back to where it should be. This is fiddly. I'm not going to pretend it's quick and easy because it isn't. It takes some patience and fiddling and getting things in the right place. Right, so I'm going to put my ruler down, and it's overlapping the edge of my foil. And where my lines stick out from underneath my card, the ruler is lined up with the line. And the foil is moved. I think I am actually going to put a small piece of tape just to stick the foil to the card. Just in one spot. That's it. And then that won't keep moving so much. Down. Okay, this ruler I've actually it's got two different sorts of edges on it, and if you find you've got a ruler with different edges, I would recommend that you make sure you always use the same one. And if that, I think that's so that when you draw lines it doesn't smudge your ink, which is rather clever, but might be a problem for me. So my die. So now I can put that on my card and push it up against the ruler. Okay, now without letting anything move, I need to get a piece of tape and tape that down. I'm actually going to move the ruler without moving the die. No, I'll leave the ruler where it was. It's a bad idea because things are bound to move if I'm not careful. I won't be able to tell what they have. So, yeah, so the die's against the ruler. Ruler straight. Stick the die down. Okay, and then I can foil that, and then I'm going to do the repeat. So I'm going to pause while I actually put this on the GoPress. No, not yet. Let's put it on the GoPress and then pause. So that is now stuck down. So I can move everything out the way. I'm bringing my GoPress platform, which has been warming up. So open the lid. It's a cutting die. Cutting dies always go cutting edge up. So there we are. It's exactly the same if you were putting the die on the GoPress first. It ends up sort of all in the same place, but you've taped it all together first. So there's that. Mustn't forget some shims. Now I've found from experimenting I need 4 layers of shim because of the cardstock I use and my die cutting machine. There we are, 4 layers. So I'm going to close the lid, put that back on the base unit to make sure it comes up to temperature. And then I'll go and run it through my die cutting machine and show the result. Okay, so this has now been through the die cutting machine. So take off my shims. That one's a double thickness, so it's 4 thicknesses. Oh, there's my die's just flipped back there. So that's the position it would have been in. So now I can actually move on to the next bit of the pattern. Now I'm just a bit concerned here might have had too much pressure and got lots of overfoiling. Whoa, yeah. So that's what you call a fail, and that's because there's too much pressure and too much foil laid down. So let's try again. Flower was quite pretty though, but we'll do it again. I'll go a bit quicker because you've already seen the first steps of sorting out all the lines. And so I'm going to use small pieces of foil this time, and a similar piece of cardstock. So that goes, no, up to the next one, up to there. Now you might notice I'm using kind of scrap pieces of card, so some of this will have ended up in a card somewhere, but while I'm experimenting I'll try and use up all my bits and pieces rather than using pristine pieces of card all the time. So that's that. I'm going to need some more foil, and I have buried my scissors. Right, so I'm going to cut a length of foil again using the rest of that big piece that I cut earlier. Okay, and then from that I'm going to cut some little squares. Okay, so each of my foiling is going to have its own little piece of foil. I'll have some fresh tape. There we go, piece of tape. So, the same as before, line my card up with the furthest mark, and at the top, then place my ruler on, no, next place my foil on. Place the foil on, so it's just inside where my card is. Put the ruler where I'm going to want to line up against, using my piece of paper as a guide. Or my cutting mat, whichever way you're doing it. I want to just be able to see my pencil lines top and bottom. And the foil ropes. Okay, my die. Put it on, as I haven't left the foil sticking out far enough. In case I haven't mentioned, I don't edit these videos. You get to see me fiddling and tinkering this into place as I would really do it. So I don't edit it and go, ah, it's really easy, here's one I did earlier. So that's in place. Piece of tape. It tapes the foil and the die down. It overlaps the edge, I'll show you that in a second. There, so now I've got it in place. Just got my piece of foil and my die, and the foil is over the die and the foil, holding both in place. So that can go on the GoPress as before. Those are my shims. So nice hot GoPress. Card with its die taped down. I think I'm going to stay with 4 shims, it might be a bit too much. So close the lid, put it back on the base to warm up. Just remember, my die is cold, it needs to warm up as well as the foil come to temperature. So I'm going to give that probably about 30 seconds. It's not a very big die, it's only a tiny little die, so it doesn't need a lot of time to warm up. And then I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. So So here I am, back from the die cutting machine. And let's see how we got on this time. So they're my shims, put those out of the way. There's the foiling. I'm going to put the platform back on its base so it stays kept at temperature. There we are, my red light's come on and is flashing. So let's see how we got on. So I'm going to peel my tape back from the die. Just carefully peel that back. Take the die off. Take my foil off. Well, I got a bit more than the outline, but I actually quite like that effect. So I'm going to carry on with that pressure, but probably 3 shims would be enough. So let's see if we can get the next one lined up. Actually, maybe the next one I'll do with fewer shims, because it won't matter to what we're doing with the lining up, but it will help us know what pressure we want when I'll assume this is an experimental piece, and that my your piece would maybe be on a bigger piece of card, perhaps a border all the way down the edge of an A5 piece of card. There's no reason why you shouldn't do that, because whilst the whole piece of card won't fit quite on the GoPress base, you can move it about, so you can sort of do from one end up and then turn the card around and work your way to the other end with the card the other way on the base. Right, so I've got my foil, my ruler, my die, and I put my petals up against my ruler. Now if I was eyeballing that, I would go further over. Maybe my ruler's not quite lined up. Maybe the die's not symmetrical. But okay, so I can just see the edge of the other flower, and I'm lined up there. So put the tape back on, and the tape goes over the die, the foil, and then onto the card. There we are, like that, and then that goes on the GoPress. So put that on my GoPress. Oh, here I've got my double shim, so that's 2 thicknesses, and I'll just put one more on. There we are. Close the lid, bring it up to temperature. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I'm back. Now, when I put my platform back into the base, the red flashing light came on, so I literally just waited until that went green, and then I've been and put it through the die cutting machine. Shims, card, platform back on the base, make sure it's connected properly, and the red flashing light is on. So again, peel the foil, the tape from the die, and there we are. Okay, let's do the next one. So card, foil, and I want the top edge of my foil just touching the previous flower. Ruler, and the foil's moved. So tape it in place. Now I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a gap between the flowers, and that is purely set by the fact the cutting edge is inside the edge I can see. So I should get even spacing if I carry on just trying to touch one up against the next. GoPress platform. Put that lot on. Put my shims back on. Close the lid. Make sure it's at temperature by putting it back in the base. And I'll be back in a few moments. Back again. Shims. Card. Platform. There we are. Peel the tape. I feel like I'm getting quicker with this. There we are, another flower. I'm still not sure I haven't got too many shims on there. Perhaps I should try taking out another one on the next one, see what happens. And then when I want to do my final piece, I'll know exactly how many to use. So, same again. I think this is 250 GSM card I'm using to foil onto, and because it's only a little die, you need less pressure. So, foil. I put the card in the wrong place. Put it up against the second line. Ruler. Line it up with the line I can see at the top and the bottom. And the foil moves. That's that. No, I can't see the edge of the die, edge of the previous one. There we are. There we are. Put the die on. Sit. Put the tape on. Then it's going on the GoPress. And this time I'm just going to use a double thickness shim on its own and see what result I get. So that goes back on the base to make sure it's at temperature. The red light's flashing, so as soon as that goes green I'll go and run it through the die cutting machine. So back again. Oh, shim. Card. Platform back on the base. So you could, if that happens, just very gently pull that back and then take your tape off the die. That's a cleaner foiling. So it is worth experimenting with the particular die you're using and how many shims you need. So I'm going to do the last one, and then that piece is done. So you're probably getting very used to this by now. Line it up, line up your card, get a piece of foil, line that up. Now I'm trying to rush, it's taking me twice as long. There we are. Ruler. Die. Now I'm lining two of the petals up against the ruler, because if you've only got a single point in contact, you could actually be twisted and not know it, and then you end up with a wiggly line. There we are, that's in place. Piece of tape. I'll put it on the GoPress, roll it and come back. Okay, so that's been through the die cutting machine. My double thickness shim. There's the card. Platform. Back on the base. Then it always stays hot enough to use. Unless you've not used it for, I think it's 25 minutes, in which case it goes into a cooling mode and you get the red light just stays on like it does when you first plug it in. And it just cools down then. So if you forget about it, you know, if you've made a car and got all excited and gone off to bed and forgot to turn off the GoPress, it will turn itself off. It won't stay heating up all night. And there we are. So I've got a straight border of flowers down the side of my card. Okay. So that's using, whoops, can't pick it up, normal cutting die, just to create my border. Okay, obviously you could do it with a hot foil stamp. I'm going to try that one in a little while, or it could be a larger die. I've got these Crafters Companion border dies, so I could do that, and I can either use the basic technique I've done here using the cutting edge, or if I bring in my thin metal shim, I can use the back of the die, and that might be a nice pattern as well. I've also got, it disappeared under my glass mat, that's a tonic die from one of their box sets. It sort of cuts in a pattern in a panel, and I thought that would make a nice design as a border. Got some bunting, got some cogs. So I'm going to try lots of these. So there's going to be a whole series of videos to see what kind of effects I get with what kind of things that I'm using. And I'm going to try it on different types of paper and card as well, so you can see what that comes out like. Okay, thanks for watching. Do look out for the next part.